Welcome to the BTEC Digital Information Technology presentation. This is the IT one. So, who is this course suitable for? Well, anybody can enter this course. There are no entry requirements at all. Suitable from anybody from level 1 all the way through to level 9. It's ideal for anybody who's interested in general IT and wants to be able to demonstrate how to use a computer effectively. We assess this one using two what's called PSAs. They're basically coursework, but they're projects completed in exam time conditions using computers, typically 6 hours, but we'll do that over about 11 lessons, so we've got a little bit of a start and a finish. The first one is based on user interfaces, making one in PowerPoint. The second one is based on doing some spreadsheet work, using charts, and then there's a 90-minute exam at the end of year 11. Component 1. Exploring user interface design principles and project planning techniques. As human beings, we interact with our devices in many different ways. Sometimes we press a button, sometimes we smile at it, sometimes we talk to it. Often we press buttons or slide things, all kinds of different things, like your mobile phone, your watch, your TV. What we need to decide is which is the best way to make those easy to use for all people, including the disabled. One of the things we will do then is, having decided which is the best way to do it, is to create what's called a Gantt chart to plan how to solve a project. And this is where we learn some project management skills. Then we ultimately need to test that design to make sure that it works in an appropriate way. And then the final part of that course would be a reflective, how well did we do? So a bit like a what went well on EBI. How does this work? Well, we have an internal piece of coursework set as an assignment by the exam board. We will have 6 hours to complete that task over about 11 lessons. So you make sure we've got a little bit of a pre-test and post-test to tidy up. All done on computer. The current one that we're looking at the moment is to create a user interface for a theme park. So as you walk in the door, you'd see a map, you'd see press where are the toilets, where can I get something to eat, where are the queues longest, those sorts of things. That's the sort of thing that we would be designing. The planning would be done using Excel and Word on a Gantt chart. We'd build the actual interface in PowerPoint with lots of links and hyperlinks, things like that, animations. And then finally we do the EBI and what went well in Word. During this whole project you'll have done lots of practice and you'll have access to your notes while you're working to help remind you what you need to do. So, to give you some idea of what this would look like, you need to produce the Gantt chart. That's the diagram on the top left-hand side here. You'd need to do a mood board. That's a sort of what sort of things are you going to do, how are you going to make it accessible to everybody, using certain icons, maybe voice readers, that kind of idea. Then you do a manual design, annotating the design about what looks good on what places. And then finally, in this section B, you would build the actual interface, which needs to be a working model. And right at the end, you do your review of your interface, what went well, EBI. A nice little unit. Component 2 is about collecting, presenting, and interpreting data. Now, we had a quick look at some data from the United Nations, which is the best place to live. And it produced the data in a very simple way using various different charts. You've got the same sort of thing to do. We would look at how organizations collect that data and how effectively do that to make it suitable for us to be able to analyze. What you will do in there, you'll be given some data. What you'll need to do is make some charts and graphs to make what's called a dashboard, a nice simple way of displaying the information for humans to analyze the information and then be able to make decisions on it. Task 3 of that is actually to make the decisions. And how did the chart help you make those decisions more effectively? Again, this is an internal PSA, so it's a piece of coursework. It'll take 6 hours of classroom time, so probably about 11 lessons, under exam conditions to complete all 3 sections. Again, you'll have done lots of practice, lots and lots and lots of practice, so that you're fully skilled up, and you'll have access to your notes to show you exactly what you need to do. Lots of support there. Here's an example of the current one. So here we've got how well did an organisation collect data for a medical centre. Ultimately, they are often collecting lots of data, and then we would produce a dashboard, which is the one in the middle, with lots of charts. We need to, in the EBI, what went well, in section C, is decide, did that produce the data effectively? Were you able to make good decisions based on that? Now, component 3 is the final exam. It's worth 40%. So that's 30% for the courseworks and 40% at the end. It's a 90-minute exam to do at the end of year 11. All BTECs will have a end of unit exam. What we need to look at is modern technologies. I've put an awful lot of detail on these slides, so you might want to pause it at some point to have a look. This is about communication technologies, how computers use Wi-Fi, tethering, your PAN, your personal area network, how you can make it nice and safe, cloud storage, cloud computing. So we use cloud computing, cloud storage at school with your 365 and storing your documents. We look at how businesses would actually decide which of those units to use, which company, based on price and things like that. A2 is the impact of modern technologies. How has technology changed the way that people are actually going to work at the moment? 24/7 access is what you expect from your bank and your mobile phone provider. Flexibility of time working, where you work, were you working at home and saving the commute? Are you working in another country for an organisation? That's A2. B1 is cybersecurity. We had a look at some of this in the malware things that we did in school, but why are things being challenged and attacked? What sort of threats are there from external people? That was the sort of things that we were looking at, but we'll do that in more depth. And then there's the internal threats. How bad are your employees at keeping your organisation safe? What can you do about that? How would you manage a security breach of your data if it was stolen? B2 is how do you prevent threats to your system, and what do you do with regards to making sure it's safe? So obviously we've got user access restrictions, how we prevent you from accessing things like the T drive or saving to the P drive. Data level protection, how do we make use of antivirus software and things like that to make sure that nothing's being passed around the school? How do you find the weakness? Again, we talked about penetration testing, that's the white hat hackers. And then we move on to B3, which is the policy. You sign every lesson to make sure that you're going to use the system safely. You make sure that we've got good safe passwords. We've got a certain disaster recovery policy. Who's looking after that? We talk about what the IT department do for us to make sure our document is kept safe. And then what do you do if there has been an attack? C1, the final implications of digital systems. We've got how do people make sure that they're using systems safely? How do we share data? Do we want our data to be shared? How do we look after the computers with regards to its creation, its use, and then its disposal? That's the environmental considerations. And then there's the legal and ethical considerations. How do we make sure that we use the systems safely, legally, without breaking any laws? How does the system actually work with regards to net neutrality? Who's got control of who's using what speed? Then we've got things like, what's the difference between somebody using social media at work for their own use, or maybe the work using your time and communicating with you when you're at home, and maybe just on your mobile? How do we protect data? How do we make use of the internet to perhaps be forgotten if we want to be forgotten by an organisation? How do we protect our intellectual property, our music, our videos, our TikToks and things like that if we don't want other people to use them? What are the criminal consequences if you do actually break some of these laws? The last unit is section D, which is planning how a communication system works. Here we'll do some forms of notation, which is building flowcharts and system diagrams and things like that. How do we put lots of data into information to make it easy for people to use? So what teaching resources do we use? Well, we've got Know It All Ninja. That'll help us with online videos, some worksheets and some mini tests. We've got idea.org, which has got a lot of stuff on there with regards to user interface. that we should have done already. How are we going to practice this? Well, there will be lots and lots of practice of using PSAs to hone your skills before we actually do any coursework. You will have done at least 2 practice ones before you actually attempt the final one. In the past, we've had guest speakers. We've had a designer from Lloyds Bank who showed us how he goes through the design process. We've had speakers from a gaming company who looked at user interfacing, how to make people want to be interested in playing your game. So who knows who the guest speakers will be next year, but I hope to have lots of them come in and talk to us about it. So where do you go from here? Well, A-levels are still possible in a range of subjects, having completed the BTEC in this. Study a vocational qualification, maybe continue the BTEC system into the National IT course, which will ultimately possibly include an apprenticeship, or even go into a degree working in the digital sector. Employment opportunities in any office-based environment using the skills that you've got there will make you invaluable. There's apprenticeships in IT coming out of your ears all at the moment. We've even got an organisation who's trying to recruit you already. This is a great launch pad to launch a career in IT services, including creative technologies like web design, project management of all types, technical support, and even cyber security. If you'd like more information and can't make the open evening, then please contact me on my email at james.stevenson@theregerschool.co.uk.